Hey folks, mark your calendars because on April 27th, we'll be launching our new book, which is of course titled Love as a Business Strategy. Visit loveasabusinessstrategy.com for more info and sign up for a chance to get a free copy. And if you're interested in bringing love as a business strategy to your organization, we are now offering free mini sessions of our globally resonant Seneca Leaders training experience. These mini sessions dive into 3 topics to help begin transforming leadership behaviors and influencing culture for the better. Space is limited, so visit softway.com/events to learn more and RSVP now. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to Love as a Business Strategy, a podcast that brings humanity to the workplace. We're here to talk about business. We want to tackle topics that most business leaders shy away from. We believe that humanity and love should be at the center of every successful business. I'm your host, Jeff Ma, and I'm a director at Softway, a business-to-employee solutions company that creates products and offers services that help build resilience and high-performance company cultures. I'm joined today, as usual, by our president and CEO, Mohammed Anwar. Hey, Mo.
Hey, guys.
Vice President Chris Petrie. Hey, Chris. And Director Frank Dana. Hi, Frank.
Hey, Mohammed. And Jeff and Chris. It's fine.
Well, it's appropriate because I've assembled us for a reason. We're going to do another ad hoc deep dive, if you will, into the history of Softway. And today, our focus will be on yet another one of our favorite stories that has played out. And we're going to flash back to a little incident. We haven't named this incident yet, you guys. We should probably give it a formal name, so that people know it. But this is an incident that involved Mohammed and Frank at a meeting that was that Frank wasn't there for, or was late to, or was not there. So I think we all know what I'm talking about now, at least on our side here, and we're about to share that story. And I think, again, the objective of this for us is to have some fun with it, a little trip down memory lane, but also kind of talk about what that meant to us in terms of culture, our learnings, and our personal growth, things like that. Just sharing those moments together here. So, Frank, I think it's appropriate for you, if you will, to kind of set up what this story is, what happened, because this story is really centered around, this is your story. So I will give you this stage.
Oh, yes. Hey, Mohammed. So it was a beautiful, I think it was either spring or summertime. I can't remember which time of year it was. Let me just start there. The sun was shining, the birds were singing. And I was sitting in my office just doing deep work. You know what I'm saying? And you get in those zones, those moments where it's sort of like precious, where you're able to just knock a bunch of stuff out and get stuff done. No distractions at all. Like nothing is in your way. And I was sitting there working, and all of a sudden I see Mohammed barreling towards my office, and I'm like,
you had a window, so you were able to see me walk to your office.
Watching him power walk over, bust the door open, and start yelling, like yelling. And I've known Mo for a long time, like since I was 18, and he's never ever yelled at me, like period, in this capacity. On top of that, and I could feel like the energy of the office. I could feel the people, because our walls were paper thin. They were barely even walls, but I could feel people like leaning towards hearing what Mohammed is saying and yelling expletives, all sorts of stuff. And then what people saw after that is Mohammed triumphantly walking out of the room and me doing this Charlie Brown style walk directly behind him, like a sad puppy, directly into the meeting room.
Wow. God. Okay. Well, I thought we were going to keep it light, but Frank, Frank just like laid it out there. Okay. Well,
Can I just share my side of the story?
You share your side of the story. I just wanted to paint that picture. I wanted to get everybody like feeling what I felt. You know what I'm saying? That's what
I'm
people
feeling
saw. You felt it, Chris? Okay, good.
Yeah,
Mohammed, let's talk about your side.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. Yeah.
So what led to that was we had a meeting that I had scheduled, I think, the morning of for all my directors.
The big heads up.
We have this. So I think I'll just come clean. Like back in the day, I used to schedule ad hoc meetings. Whenever I wanted, I would be like, "Hey guys, we're gonna have a meeting." We didn't like have a scheduled recurring meeting or anything. It was just I woke up that morning and I felt like I needed to have a meeting with my directors. So I set up the meeting for the afternoon, and our office, we have this tendency of showing up late to meetings. And so I'm sitting there waiting for all my leaders to show up to the meeting room, and slowly everybody starts rolling in. 10 minutes into the meeting, and I'm looking around to see if you have attendance for everyone. And Frank is missing in the room. So I obviously was irritated, and I actually began to ask people in the room, where the hell is Frank? And everybody was like, I don't know. And like nobody wanted to like kind of respond or take ownership of Frank's situation, I guess.
Yeah,
Frank,
nobody wanted to take ownership.
A quick pause for context. Just
Yeah.
What year was this? Like what was
2016.
2016, right? So just to make sure this wasn't last week. Just want to make sure everyone this was a while back ago. So that's why we're laughing about it. Go ahead, Mo. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, so I began to ask people, where's Frank? And nobody was able to tell me where he was. And I sat there, I was just waiting, hoping Frank would show up. And I had made up in my mind that I'm going to yell at him as soon as he walks in, whenever he did. And so I waited, and Frank didn't show up. So
I didn't want to get yelled
at. I started actually yelling about Frank in front of everyone. And I'm laughing about it, but looking back at it, was actually not good what I did. But I started talking about Frank to the room and started saying things like, Frank's always late. There's no sense of discipline. He doesn't show up to meetings on time. And I just started to like disparage his character as a way to vent. And I tried that, and it still didn't work because Frank still did not show up.
Maybe if I talk bad about him, he'll feel it. He'll feel it, and he'll just gravitate towards the room and be like, y'all talking about me?
But the best part, Frank, was everybody was acknowledging me in the meeting room.
Come on.
To be honest.
I would challenge that. I would challenge that. Silence in that situation was compliance, but it was not agreement.
That's fair.
It looked like you guys were agreeing with everything I had to say.
Well, in that moment, in your mood, do you think that anybody was going to do anything contrary or speak contrary to anything that you were saying? Like, sorry, Frank, you were assassinated in that room, and there was nobody willing to take that bullet for you.
You know what?
Nobody.
You know what? Some of it may have been true. Some of it may have been true, especially for this one.
So I think 15 minutes going to the meeting, and we're already like, okay, this is a 1 hour meeting, and 15 minutes in, Frank isn't here, and I'm done. I'm not going to sit and wait for this guy anymore. So I decided I'm going to waltz into his office and go get him. And that's how I remember me barging into your office. I do remember yelling at you.
Oh, yeah.
I do remember yelling at you. And I do remember when I was walking to your office, I saw you see me through the window.
Yes.
And we made eye contact. And you were probably like, is he walking to my room? And I was walking to your room. And I was angry for sure.
There's that thing that happens in Spain where the bulls chase people down the streets. It's kind of how when I saw you, I was like, oh no.
Anyways, so I walked into the room, and I do remember cursing, and I think I was definitely yelling.
Do you recall the specific words that were used by chance?
Probably not safe for this podcast.
I've got them written down here. I'm just kidding.
So I basically, I mean, to the effect, I mean, I don't know the verbatim, but it was essentially like, why the hell are you not in this meeting that you're supposed to be in? And all I remember is like, I didn't give a chance to Frank to even respond. I literally just was the only one speaking and or yelling. And I essentially told him, get your behind out of the chair and let's go to the meeting right now.
That's 100%.
What's another word for behind?
I just don't want to say it, but yes.
Okay. Booty.
A synonym. You can think about it.
But then I Charlie Brown walked in, sat down, and our executive producer Maggie is saying badonkadonk is another word, and I'm sure that Muhammad said badonkadonk.
I can't even pronunciate it. Badonkadonk? Badonkadonk?
Right, we're pivoting this entire podcast. Go ahead, Mom, and say that one more time.
Badonkadonk?
Close nailed it.
Close enough. So I go into the meeting and I'm not contributing. I'm just trying not to cry. Basically, I'm just sitting there and I'm just like, and that was it. And then the meeting ended, right?
I remember that meeting actually. I do remember the frustration. I remember, Muhammad, to be honest, the way you were positioning it, like while waiting for Frank, it felt like very justified. Like I wasn't like that sense that people agreed with you came from kind of being like we need to be more like, why are our leaders not disciplined? Why can't we come to things on time? And to me, I'm like, I'm pretty sure Frank's. I might have even said this. I'm like, I think I saw Frank in his office. Like literally just kind of like, yeah, why isn't he? I'm like, why isn't he here? I mean, we're all here. Why isn't he here? So it's kind of like
rallying. They're rallying against you.
And I don't recall the meeting, but I do recall the surprise Muhammad meetings that were like sitting on top of other things, or, you know, you would think, you know, in logical terms, like, oh, since this is a last minute meeting, perhaps I should go with the previously scheduled meeting and get the updates for this newly scheduled meeting. But that wasn't, you know, how it went down. You got yanked out of meetings if you were sort of summoned by Muhammad in those days. And so, like, you'd be in the middle of presenting something or trying to get teams in line, but Muhammad needs you to go over to this other room. You're like, oh, I guess I gotta go, you guys. I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm gonna be back. I don't know if I'm gonna be back.
We love you, Muhammad.
I'm sorry. I gotta go.
He pops open his laptop and he's like, boom. You know what I'm saying?
It's like
I do remember, like, after Frank made it into the room, I had to collect my emotions and like go into the meeting, whatever it is. I don't remember the agenda. I don't even know why I called for the meeting. It's too long. But I do remember every minute of yelling at Frank and getting him into the room, or yelling about Frank and then getting him into the room. But once we got done with the meeting, you know, a few hours later, I saw an invitation for a one-on-one pop up on my, email for invite request from Frank. And in that very moment, I started to get this feeling that, oh crap, I think I did it again. I was like, oh crap, I think I must have done something wrong or must have misbehaved, because it was 2016. I think it was the start of my journey of realizing about my behaviors. And as soon as that meeting popped up, I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure Frank is upset. And he booked it for the next day. And he booked it in this cornermost office, like literally the last office of our suite. So we had a pretty big office suite, and we had this executive wing that had been abandoned since 2015. And he booked one of the cornermost offices. Usually that was the room where if there was a performance related issue or some kind of a crucial conversation to be had, that was the room we would use. Mm-hmm. And so he booked that room. And so when I saw the meeting room that was booked, I was like, oh crap, maybe I began to like contemplate or think through like maybe Frank is upset enough to resign from that incident, because I reflected on, oh my gosh, I think I was really harsh on him. And so, and it wasn't the first time that somebody had resigned because of me yelling at them. So that's kind of what happened that day. I don't know, Frank, what were you thinking when you were sending me the invite or whatever? I don't know if you had anything to share, but why you booked that room, but that's how I felt.
Yeah, my thought was like, no one can hear you scream all the way back there. And no, but I wanted it to be something that was purposefully far away so we could have a conversation. So again, walls are paper thin, so I was like, well, if there's at least 10 walls between us and the bullpen where everybody sits, that would be helpful. You know what I mean? So I think that was really the intent behind it, is just, hey, let's meet in a place that's nondescript, that's a little bit, a ghost town is a good word for it.
So time out. I just want to speak to the listeners. This is actually the worst strategy. If you feel like you could be victimized, you want as many witnesses as possible. So you want to keep that meeting as close to earshot of others in case there's a need for intervention. So just putting it out there. I just want to be responsible. I feel like we have a platform.
I did the wrong thing. That's great advice. I did not even, I was like, hey, let's just make it an intimate discussion. Let's have a conversation about it. Chris is like, no, make sure people can hear it.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, I think so that follow-up meeting, I think, is what makes this story live in infamy even more so than the previous transgression. So tell us about that meeting, Frank.
Yeah, so day of, I was just gonna say, like, I purposefully I scheduled it and I purposefully got there on time, maybe 2 or 3 minutes early. But when I got there, I had two things with me. I had a notebook and I had my computer. And Mohammed, I want you to tell a little bit, and then we'll add we'll add to the story.
So ultimately, I showed up, and I won't lie, I think I was late to this meeting by a few minutes. I walked into the room, and I essentially saw Frank having a notebook, and it was open. It was already open, and there was things written on it. And his laptop was there as well, but it was closed. And so I sat down, and I was already very anxious because I was expecting a resignation. So I went in there already prepared to kind of like calm the situation down. Yeah. And I know even before Frank could begin to speak, I started justifying what had happened yesterday. And if I'm not wrong, I started blaming my other directors to Frank.
Whoa.
Yes. I
do said remember, specifically Jeff and Chris. I'm kidding.
I didn't say specifically Jeff.
Yes, there was blame. There was blame.
It was blame, but it was not Frank. This time around, I was blaming
everyone
all
else.
The leaders for coming late. And I was like, Frank, people don't ever show up on time, and my leaders don't show up on time. And the meeting already, people were coming in late, and I was already pissed. And when I didn't see you, that's why I was already pissed. But it wasn't necessarily your fault. It was everyone's fault. And like, I tried to kind of do whatever I could to justify my action from the previous day. And I wasn't apologizing. I will tell you, I did not apologize. All I was trying to do was justify why I had yelled at Frank.
Yeah.
And I remember Frank was just listening, and then he just said something to the effect of like, Mohammed, can I speak now? Or something. I don't remember exactly, but he got me to shut up.
I have something to say. I'd like to share something with you. And your boy, can I say your boy on this podcast? Your boy does not like conflict. I'm a conflict averse person. And so scheduling a meeting with Mohammed was stressful enough. Scheduling at the farthest place in the office, according to Chris, is not a smart move. And at the same time, I had written down what I wanted to say to him so I could be as clear as possible, because when I was sitting there in front of him, I was shaking. like physically
I can
shaking.
attest to that.
My hands were shaking. My body was shaking. Like I was, like when you're very, very cold, I was sitting there like this, like shaking in this dramatic fashion, because I literally was afraid to say what I wanted to say. But I knew I had to say something. And so I began reading what I had written into the notebook. And I started telling Muhammad that, you know, I did not appreciate being spoken to like that. I said that I felt that it was unfair for him to yell, and that the words that he used were very unkind and very hurtful. And I began to share that with him directly, but I used the notebook because I know if I wouldn't have had that in front of me with the stuff written down on it, I would have jumbled up my what I had to say to him in a way that really wouldn't have been beneficial. But I began to tell Muhammad how that interaction made me feel.
Yep. And he was shivering. I did notice that. But when he delivered his, how he felt, in the moment, I started to feel this sense of shame and guilt. It's easy to talk about it now, but I think in the moment I was very embarrassed. But so I did ultimately apologize.
You did. Yeah. I remember specifically you said, you kind of like almost mentally tossed out the excuses, and you were like, Frank, I'm sorry, I should not have treated you like that. Like you kind of got rid of all the other stuff that was sort of clouding what you were trying to say, and just said,
yeah, I was essentially trying to justify my behavior from mistakes of others, right? Like that's essentially what I was doing.
Yeah.
But when you you told me how you felt in the moment, I realized, okay, crap, like I just need to apologize. But then Frank accepts the apology, and then he says, Muhammad, I have one more thing I want to share with you. And I was like, okay. And he began to open up his laptop, and he turned it around to me and showed me the detail of the calendar invite from the previous day of the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And he showed me that I had actually forgotten to invite Frank to the meeting. His name was not even on the invite list. And I was at that moment in time, like, you have no idea, guys. I was already embarrassed, and I went into like even more embarrassment, because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Like this whole incident played itself out, not because Frank was late, but because I had forgotten to invite Frank, and I had just misbehaved in ways that, even if it was his fault, I shouldn't have. But now looking at it, this is all my fault, and I misbehaved and treated Frank this way. And it was just like a double whammy for me in the moment. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to do something about my behaviors, because I was also like surprised that he did not resign despite all of this. But in the moment, that was what was like, I immediately went into this stage of like, oh crap, like I gotta like stop this. I can't keep going on like this. I can't behave like this anymore. But I do remember like Frank didn't just leave it there and let me feel bad. Like he did a good job of also like consoling me. Like he's the one who got victimized with all of these behaviors, but at the end of that meeting, I wasn't the one consoling him. He was the one consoling me, telling me, hey, don't worry about it. It's okay. And like, like I don't know, Frank, do you want to talk about that? Like,
I do, because I think that's the point. What I was doing was I was giving you feedback, and I had never intended to quit. I was not going to resign, because here's the thing, like this was a few months into your journey, right? You had gone to that big Houston football game, right? The U of H game. We had gone to San Francisco, and we'd kind of experienced other cultures. We started to kind of get into this. You had started to become and share with me and many other people that you were going to make mistakes, but you were trying to become a better leader. and you had stepped into this journey of servant leadership or reliable leadership or whatever we're going to call it. But essentially, like in that moment, you were trying and you made a mistake. And so it was my responsibility, even though I felt like I was going to throw up on everything, to tell you what I needed to tell you because I care about you. And because you had asked us to hold you accountable. You had said, when I mess up and make mistakes, please, like treat me as a person. Like, tell me what I'm doing wrong. Show me how I can improve. And I took that to heart. And so in that moment, I wanted to make sure that you were able to receive feedback in this way, like just from someone who you've known for such a long time. And I wanted to make sure that it was actionable, like that you could see clearly what that looked like. And I was not willing to give up on you. So that was the reason why I had taken that time to write down my thoughts and to communicate it in the way I wanted to and did, was because you as a leader had said, I need help here. And the last thing I wanted to do in that moment was not help you and not help continue to move this transformation forward and support you in that. So that was really the intent.
No, I appreciate it. That was, no matter how embarrassed I was and how I felt, like Frank did a really good job of like making sure I walked out of that meeting not like I think not feeling as guilty or not, going into self-condemnation, because that was also very common for me. Like when I do realize that I did something wrong, I'd shut down and I'd avoid people because I wasn't able to forgive myself. And I did that a lot to myself. And in the moment, I know Frank, the way he reached out to me, the way he gave me that olive branch to help me. He also left me feeling confident that, okay, I made a mistake, but I can get better. So that was very helpful. And I don't know how many leaders out there have that benefit or opportunity of having, people who report to them, hold them accountable this way. But for me, that was definitely a gift. And I even till now, like remember that story. Every now and then me and Frank will joke about it.
We all joke about it.
we can joke about it. That's the best part. Is like,
to this day, if anybody like is late or doesn't show up to a meeting, we ask Muhammad, "Did you make sure they were on the invite?"
And sometimes they weren't. Like legitimately, it happens. It's not just you, Muhammad. I'm not blaming you for this, Chris.
But can we also just add that when someone is left off of a meeting invite, it typically is Frank, even to this day?
Actually, I to be honest, recently it's been JJ. It's been missed out from meeting invites.
It's going around. Yes, I have been accidentally uninvited to, or not invited, period, to meetings. And it was actually last week. There was one that one of our team members.
It wasn't me though. It wasn't me though. It was somebody else.
You. It was someone else. But they were like, "Hey, where you at?" And I was like, "Where am I at? I'm at my house." And they're like, "No, there's a meeting happening right now." I go to my calendar, of course. Okay, send me the link. Send me the Zoom.
Which is a true measure of forgiveness, is like when it happens again, how do you respond? And Frank doesn't.
It's just fine. I just show up 5 minutes late. It's okay.
I think I know Chris and I weren't we were in the meeting room where this happened, but we definitely were not in the room at the end of the hall when the other part played down. But this is still a story that I think is just ingrained in Softway kind of lore, because again, one of the things that we talk about a lot is our transformation as a business, but also oftentimes, Muhammad, you're at the center of that conversation. We talk a lot about like Mo 1.0, if you will. As we're always upgrading ourselves and becoming better versions of ourselves, we always reference kind of 2015 or pre-2016 Muhammad as like a version of you that was undergoing a lot of change, but from a place of, like more of a temper, more of a different approach, a very heavy-handed approach to leadership, and very a lot of elements we talk about as a theme But this story is I like this story so much because I know Frank very well as well at this point, and the courage of that story doesn't always come through unless, I guess, we know each other so well. I kind of wanted to highlight it for this purpose. Is like just understanding Frank as a person. Frank's not to just embarrass you here, but you're a very kind-hearted person. You're someone who wants to make everybody happy. You want everyone to get along, and you just have a great heart. But it also makes situations like that just incredible. I just know you, even to this day, that's not something easy to do. Not much less for anybody. Not like Muhammad, is one thing, but you wouldn't. That'd be hard for any. And I think that story is always inspiring to me because I think it spoke volumes to what a culture is capable of bringing out of us. I know our culture wasn't there yet at that time, but the alignment that we'd already started building around what kind of culture we wanted to have and the commitment to that journey really played out in a space where people were being very human, making very human mistakes like
Right.
Muhammad did. But also, Frank, you having the ability to not be petty about it, you had every right the moment he even, you could have just sent him a text, said, like, I was never invited, flip him the bird and like walk out the door or whatever. Like you had all these types of opportunities, but you chose to make it an opportunity to help Muhammad through that. And that's amazing to me because it takes something really special to happen in that space. And we treasure this story as fun, as much as we make fun of Muhammad about it. We make fun of about it because it's a story that's definitely in our chronicles, right? It's like it's locked away in the vault because that's really just I love it. It's like this fable now that was a true story, but it's such a fun like contrast to like some things that I think we find somewhat natural or more natural now, that we're not perfect, but we have these types of little holding each other accountable and little moments of trying to help each other through mistakes like more often now. Like I feel like it's not perfect, but that's where like courage becomes easy now. Courage becomes easier with what we were able to build through that. That's what I get.
It's way less of an event, right? And I think like there was this pomp and circumstance of like, let me book a room in the farthest part of the galaxy. Let me like bring a notebook to make sure I don't mess anything up. Let me have this laptop that I can open up and point to. Like there was this kind of this extra layer of coordination that had to be done. But as you get to a point where, number one, relationships are better, but also when your culture is more closely tied to feedback being part of just your everyday interactions, you don't have to have that pomp and circumstance like that. It doesn't become an event. It becomes a natural part of your discussions with each other. And you can move past it much faster as a result of it kind of getting better. So anyway, that's that. If we're looking at 2016 and now at 2021, the difference in terms of how long it would take for me to give you that same type of feedback, it's huge.
Oh, just a few weeks ago, Muhammad texted me in the morning and says, "Hey, I have some feedback for you that when you get a chance." And I look at his calendar. I'm like, okay, like now I want this. I'm ready. Like I'm ready for it. And then
he's triple booked.
So I immediately like, because he's like, we can talk like the next time we have a chance to meet is like at night or the next day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I immediately give him some feedback back. I'm like, Mo, here's some feedback for you. Don't tease me with the feedback just for me to wait all day to find out what it is, because I can't live like this. Like I want my feedback now. And so that's how feedback is no longer an event. Like even as I was primed for feedback, because if he's like the type of, if he's like my boss, like the type that, I would be intimidated by or scared by, I mean, I would have spent all day. Like I knew his feedback would be good. I knew his feedback would be something constructive. I could handle it. But, typically someone comes and tells you I have feedback for you. You're just, the rest of your day is just stuck, especially your boss. You're going to be like,
that's
what
how
is
it was.
it? What did I do wrong? You'll be replaying every single thing you've done in life, figuring out what this feedback is going to be about. And you lose sleep that night if that meeting is the next day, So that's the feedback. I love seeing feedback as a culture kind of play out in funny ways. Cause I'm like, I just texted Mo about later. I was like, Mo, a little bit of feedback for you. Just if you have it ever, just give it to me or just don't. Because if you just tell me you have it and leave me hanging, I don't like it. Like, it doesn't feel good. He's like, oh shoot, okay, yeah, let's learn. So he gave me the feedback. It was just a silly example.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious because he doesn't like it when I do that to him on anything. Like, I could be like, hey, don't let me forget to talk to you about this thing. He's like, well, yeah, let's talk about it now. I can't wait. I can't wait till then. I can't wait.
That's totally true. I totally agree. Like,
and it's not even
Chris
feedback. It's not even feedback. It's just like, oh, this small little thing happened, but you need to know about it. And he's like, what was it? What happened? Can you talk about it now? And I'm like, I'm in a meeting. You're in meetings. He's like, I can't focus until you tell me. I can't go on. I can't go on. You're like,
I expect you to live this life.
You're totally right. You're right. Like, I do get those feelings. It's like this fear of like missing out or waiting or something. I'm like, no, I need to hear it now. Like, I want it now. So awesome.
And that's what you're doing to me. But anyways, so I think this is one of our favorite stories, and I definitely appreciate you again, everyone digging deep and retelling it, reliving it. Hopefully, people draw parallels. I think we share these stories for ourselves to learn and retro and kind of relive and learn again. But hopefully we share it because we also see it. We see not exactly the story, but the parallels play out in different dynamics. And we've seen the darker timeline of these play out. We've seen how these go sideways, these go wrong, mistakes that don't get resolved in this way, and what that can mean to cultures. And just we've played it out. We've seen it played out, and so these stories are just beneficial for us to like retell and connect with. And hopefully, as an audience, as listeners, you guys are enjoying that and getting a little bit out of it. And if you did, we'd love to hear from you. I Love as a Business Strategy. We're going to be posting stuff like this more often, and you can count on every Tuesday we'll be putting out something that's long. We're really trying to give content around this lane of sharing more real stories, connecting with you. We would love to hear back what you think about it, and if you have any similar stories, you can leave us that kind of feedback at softway.com/labs if you'd like to engage. And if you like what you heard, please do leave a review, subscribe, tell a friend, all that good stuff. And so with that, I'd like to thank Mohammed, Frank, Chris for joining me, reliving our past once again. All those emotions coming up. I know it's fun and stressful sometimes, but it was good. I appreciate you guys taking the time. Appreciate everyone joining me today. So with that, we'll see each other next week.